Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's do this thing triple threat style as we're going to break down Lyoto Machida and Gegard Mousasi's main event fight this Saturday night in Brazil. Mousasi, long often spoken of as the best fighter not in North America and not in the UFC. Lackluster debut, albeit an injured lackluster debut. In his debut, gets Lyoto Machida. We're going to break it down with Reed Kuhn from Fightnomics. Joey Odessa, the premier combat sport odds maker in the business. And of course, the Olympics continue. Sean Pierson, a former Canadian wrestler, will join us. We'll find out when Sean's going to step back into the octagon and whether MMA has a place in the Olympics. All that and more on tonight's MMA Meltdown. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's bring in a man that they call the Punisher and a man that's really enjoying the Olympic Games in Sochi as Canada's kicking some serious ass. Mr. Sean Pierson steps up and in. Sean, it's always a pleasure, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Yourself?
We're doing good, Sean. We're doing good. And, you know, I follow you on Twitter, and I don't see anybody else out there that's enjoying Canada's success at the Olympics more than you right now.
No, I'm a big, one of those regrets in my life. I wish I had tried a little harder to make the Olympics, but, I want to support the Canadian athletes to my fullest abilities, and it's been a good time watching them performing amazing right now.
Yeah, my grandfather played for the 1936 Team Canada Olympic team in Germany in the Olympics. So the Olympics have always been important to me as well. And actually, I played hockey as a youngster, Sean, and I didn't want to be in the NHL. I wanted to be like Sean Burke and represent Canada in the Olympics. Something special about the Olympics, isn't there?
Oh, 100%. It's one of those things that growing up as a wrestler, to me, the Olympics was the end-all, be-all. There's no professional circuit. It's, where the elite go to, discover who the best, who the greatest of the sport is.
Now, everybody talks about, the hockey, and, there's professional players in the hockey, but when I look at the other athletes, the bobsledders, the lugers, the skiers, etc., the snowboarders, you go down the list of all the different sports, I see a lot of similarities to what they do and what you do. And you have to respect that, I imagine, Sean, as a fighter, in which you put in thousands of hours of training without any fanfare. You got to get up at 8 in the morning and go to the gym in the dark, or 6:30 in the morning, go to the gym, even if you don't have a fight lined up. You got to continue the grind. And then every once in a while, you get an opportunity to showcase your skills to the world. But in your case, you only have 15 minutes to do it. And, you got judges to deal with. You got injuries to deal with. And truth be told, not everybody's rich in your line of work. I see a lot of similarities between an Olympic athlete and an MMA fighter, Sean.
No, 100%. The great thing about Olympics, about my sport, about everything in general, the greatest or the best doesn't always win. It's the greatest in that moment. And there's something special about that. You know what I mean? You can be the best all year, but you've got one moment to perform in one moment only. And when it happens, it's magical. It's one of those things where you're just, I see these guys cry after they win medals, and I fully understand, because everything, the accumulation of your whole life's training is all being showcased in one moment. And anything can happen in that moment. We've seen some great athletes crash. We've seen them fall, stagger, the different pressures and stuff. But when something magical happens in that one moment, they perform. It's incredible, and I feel for them. Like watching the Russian, the 15-year-old Russian girl dominate the singles ice dance. I was like, whoa! At 14, I don't even think she understands what the pressure is yet. But just to perform at such a high level was amazing.
And she looks like she's 9 years old. She's 15. She looks like she's 9 or 10 years old. What was your moment then, Sean, in which all you felt as if though, man, this is what it's all about? Was it your first fight in the UFC?
It was definitely my first fight in the UFC. It was, getting in there. I remember crying after the fight, but I got in there, and the pressure hadn't really hit me as much because it was so quick. Everything came so quick to me, and then, hearing my name in I think it was the second or third round, hearing Pierson go through the crowd, and then the standing ovation afterwards, it was just a moment that I can't take back. I just look at it and I'm like, wow. This is all worth it. You know what I mean? And there's been many times in my life where I said this isn't worth it. But when those things happen, everything's worth it.
It seems, and Sean, the one am I right in assuming it's a disappointment that you didn't get to the UFC a little bit younger?
Oh, 100%. But I also look at that as something that I can be proud of because, truthfully, it's all in my hands. I could have worked harder. I could have done this. I could have done that. I could have not gone, because I quit fighting to go back and work. I was proud of the fact that I never gave up.
It's amazing how time flies, isn't it, Sean? And you said 6 fights in the UFC. I remember the day when you and I were outside in the rain, outside of Queen's Park, trying to get MMA legalized in this province.
Yeah.
And you weren't in the UFC at that point in time. The UFC wasn't coming here, and Rob Ford, of all people, showed up, the only politician that showed up at the time. And I just ask you about that, about, arriving to UFC a little late, because as you stated, there's days that, Josh the Punk Thompson recently is a good example. The guy's on the verge of a title fight, and he says, I'm just not feeling it. I don't like training. Every day I wake up and consider retiring. And it seems a lot of fighters, when they hit 32, 33, maybe, that 30 range, when they've been doing this stuff forever, it's just hard for them. But you fought through that in your early 30s.
Yeah, but I'm feeling it again now. It was tough. Last year I was injured. I had a herniated disc in my back. So I was on the shelf for most of last year. I got one fight in. I can't financially support my family on one fight, and that's not the UFC's fault. I'm not blaming anybody about pay or anything, but that's just reality. So I sit here now, and I'm like, okay, well, I could be ready to fight. I just had a new baby. I can fight in June, but, I've got to find other ways to financially be stable in my life. And, again, I love my sport, but, again, I'm almost 38 now. I've got to be smart and do the right things for my family first and foremost. But, again, I don't blame anybody. It's been a great ride, and I do plan on having a few more fights, but I have to do what's right by the family first and foremost.
Do you look at it? And say, you know what, I'm not going to do this past I'm 40, or do you take it one camp, one fight at a time, as long as you can get through it and still enjoy it?
I've always told my wife I won't fight in my 40s, but at the same time, she's my biggest supporter. She thinks I'm Superman, and I don't want to tell her I'm not. But
you're the Punisher, man. You're exactly.
I'm the Punisher. Well, I would have called myself Batman because he's my favorite comic book hero, but it didn't fit. It's just one of those things. I'll take one fight at a time. Like my next fight, I'm thinking I'm going to 155 and making a run there. But like the one thing I love about martial arts is it changes constantly. Daily changes. Like the game changes so often. You're always learning. And, it can get frustrating when I understand what Josh is going through. When you get injured, little things happen. When you're the champion, you're getting paid. I'm sure no champs are complaining. But on your grind on the way up, I could see if I was 22, I'd be more than happy. More than happy to live this lifestyle at 22 because it's been great. But I'm just a little bit older, and I worry about, obviously my health and support my family. There's just more things going through your head that you want than you don't want. I just don't want these things in my head when I'm training for a fight. You're about to go in the cage, and I'm thinking, I need this win because I need the money. That's not the best mentality to have. And the last few fights, I wasn't like that. It's just because I've been hurt, and last year, again, I only got one fight. It's been a little tougher.
And that's something that I've always wondered about. That the pressure of the win bonus. If you just fight, you're going to get through. You're going to pay some bills and stuff. But how much pressure do fighters put on themselves? The guys that aren't making $500,000 a year, guys such as yourself, those win bonuses are pretty damn important, aren't they? But as you stated, you can't kill yourself with pressure about that, because then you're not in the right frame of mind to fight, right?
Yeah, it definitely goes through our heads. But at the same time, like I try and flush it out, and again, my family's good with saying it doesn't matter, and I'm in my belief, I think that if you're a good person, you're always going to land on your feet. Like, I truly think that about myself. No matter what, I'll land on my feet. I can go back to work, get another job. I can get on the hustle down here, go teaching. Like, I have a lot of options. It's just a matter of, walking through that door. When I need to, I'll go make the money and I'll do whatever. If you're a good person, I think good things happen to you. And again, I know there's 1,000 different people that'll argue with me, but that's the belief I like to have anyways.
So what gets you out of bed in the morning and goes to the gym? Is it, I'm fighting in the top company in the world? Or is it that, hey, I've won 3 fights in a row. Let's put the pedal to the metal right now and see what we can do. Is it the moment of victory in the cage? Is it the process of knowing what you accomplished, win or lose, after the fact? So what's driving you right now at this age?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think one of those things is my family. I want to get better because, I've got a son. I want to be a good role model. I just want to show him that I can keep getting better and, do great things. I always say, like, I'm the average Joe trying to be a little less average every day. So if I'm doing something every day, I'm getting a little bit better. And that's, a good philosophy to live by. You just got to improve a little bit each day. But that moment of victory in the octagon is probably the greatest feeling in the world. I don't think one athlete will tell you anything different. That moment you get when your hand gets raised, I don't care if you grinded out a decision, one by knockout, one by submission, your hand being raised, there's no greater feeling.
Is it the same? Did you get the same thrill as your hand getting raised in W1 as the UFC? I know you're fighting tougher guys, but is the thrill for victory the same going up all the way?
I think it's the same because it's very similar anyways. Obviously, you're in a bigger organization now. There's more fans watching. There's a little bit more pressure, so it's a little bit better feeling. But at the same time, when you're in the lower organizations, you're still putting everything at risk, and that's what the key is. You put yourself out there to get hurt, and I don't mean hurt physically. I just mean emotionally get hurt, because when you lose, emotionally is what hurts me the most. I feel like I've let the world down. So I think whenever you put yourself out there like that, that thrill of victory is always going to be the same. Like I had that same thrill of victory when I wrestled. Wrestling a national championship final and winning. It's the same feeling. It's just the greatest feeling in the world. I don't know if it comes from individual athletics, individual sports, or combat sports, but it's just an amazing feeling.
Sean Pierson with us. So, Sean, before we let you go, just a couple of things. It is the Olympics, and the conversation always comes up about mixed martial arts in the Olympics. And I know there's no world governing body, so we're a ways away from this. And I threw this out on Twitter the other day. There seem to be a lot of people with a lot more negatives and reasons why it can't happen as opposed to why it will happen. Now, we know the Olympics started with guys, basically fighting naked till the death. So I know that argument, but at the same point in time, I don't know if the Olympics want blood, and I imagine there'd have to be headgear. But they have so many elements of combat sports in the Olympics already. The Olympics seem to be embracing the X Games demographic of a younger, hipper crowd, which mixed martial arts has. Mixed martial arts practiced all around the world. What do you think about the potential of mixed martial arts in the Olympics? Because I got to imagine if you had a chance to compete for Canada in the Olympics, in mixed martial arts, you'd be all over that, Sean.
I would, but I don't know. I have a problem with the way everything's going with the Olympics right now. Everything's about money, and it really bothers me. Like, look at what happened to wrestling over the past few years. I know it's back in the games, but something like that to me just tells me because wrestling wasn't pulling in enough advertising dollars because it wasn't getting the viewership it deserves. To me, the Olympics is the foundation of true amateur sports. Now, I don't like to see that foundation change. Like, I could go through, and people wouldn't like it, but I could go through a lot of sports in the Olympics that I don't think should be there. I don't consider every sport in the Olympics a sport. You know what I mean? And again, I don't know what the true definition of sport is. But when I see certain things out there, I'm like, I respect the athletes in other sports a lot more. And I don't think mixed martial arts will be in the Olympics. I don't necessarily think it should be. And again, I'm open to the idea, but I don't even necessarily believe fully in amateur MMA. I have a hard time seeing people get out there. And again, this is coming from someone who never had an amateur fight. I don't know. I just feel like if you're out there fighting, I think you should get paid. I don't know. That's the way I look at that. To me, if you want to do amateur, I think you should be doing amateur kickboxing, amateur boxing, amateur wrestling. You do all the sports individually, and then when we combine them into mixed martial arts.
But that's the problem.
Level.
That's the problem with the Olympics, isn't it, Sean? In which the whole line between professionals. Shaun White's a multimillionaire. He's a multimillionaire. And then you get other people on the slopes, and they're lucky if they got $400 in their bank account. And I will enjoy watching Sidney Crosby and Carey Price and Luongo and Ovechkin and that elite brand of hockey. But I never thought the pros should be there in the first place. So I do agree with you. I think there should be amateurs.
What it does is and hockey's different because hockey pulls from all over the world. But we can go to basketball, and it's really a 2-team show or a 3-team show when you look at basketball, when the pros come in. You're taking out other countries now that can no longer compete with you. And, again, I don't know what the right or wrong answer is because we all want to see the best compete. And with hockey, that's what happens. In basketball, the best compete because you got the professionals in it. But, it's unfortunate because there's a lot of sports that don't have professional avenues to go. And those sports, they don't have the viewership. To me, Well, obviously I love wrestling. I love the aspect, and I want to watch the finals all the time. I'll watch curling. I don't care. I'll watch any sport out there, and to see the best compete. That's just the way I am. I love sports. Women's hockey, I'm big into right now. I actually played in the summer with a few of the girls, so I'm trying to cheer them on the best I can. Sports is great. It just brings everybody together, and it's the one time when I think everybody's cheering for Canada because, a lot of times I see people not wanting to cheer for the local team. Like, I'm a hockey fan. A lot of Torontonians don't cheer for the Leafs. I want to shoot myself when I hear that. I don't care if they suck. I don't care if they don't make playoffs. I'm still going to cheer for the Leafs. They're the local team. Because that makes me think that I'm a local fighter and you're not going to cheer for me. I'll always cheer for the local athletes.
And, Sean, we got to wrap it up, but it's great stuff. So a couple of quick things. You dropped 155-pound. Is that for sure? You've decided to drop to 155? And, we got a ton of cards coming up in the Canadian market. So you're obviously not on the Quebec card, but after that we got Vancouver, we got Toronto, we got Montreal. There's a Halifax card. There's a lot of cards coming up. So can we expect to see you on one of these cards?
My goal is at minimum 2. I'd like to get on, in a perfect world, Vancouver I think is in June, September is Toronto, and December is Montreal. Like, the ideal world, if I could get 3 fights in, and 155 is my plan right now. We're in the process. I've just started my diet up just to see where I can get down to. But, I've seen my nutritionist and everybody, and everybody thinks it's doable. I don't cut much to 170, so I think we're going to see me at 155 next.
Sean the Punisher Pierson, check him out, SeanPearson.com. Sean, enjoy the Olympics. Man, we always love catching up with you. Great stuff. Thanks a lot for joining us on MMA Meltdown. We're glad to hear that the health is in order right now, and I can't wait to see you back in the octagon, man. Looking for your 4th straight win.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
There's Sean Pierson with us. The thing I love about Sean, I got a lot in common with Sean, as you can see, Sean's a huge sports fan. I think Sean Pierson and Aaron Simpson, if you remember Aaron Simpson, former UFC fighter and now a wrestling coach over at Arizona State, I think these are the 2 fighters that are the biggest sports fans that are watching all sports and not just involved in combat sports. But the great stuff with Sean Pierson. He's a class act. We wish you the best of luck. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's talk some Fightnomics with a man who should be very proud of himself. Did a great job with the books, Fightnomics. I've just really thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you haven't picked it up yet, this is a must-read for all you diehard MMA fans, as well as MMA bettors as well. Mr. Reed Kuhn joins us. Reed, it's always a pleasure. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me.
So, Reed, you have to be satisfied with the feedback that you've gotten from the book. I know you put a ton of time into this. You were very, very meticulous. And, it's nice to see that your work is being rewarded. I've seen nothing but positive reviews of the book.
Yeah, that was nice. And it definitely means a lot when fighters and coaches have been giving positive feedback because, they've had the same questions that the fans had sometimes about how trends play out in fights. And so finally we were able to put some numbers behind it.
Now you've come on the show quite a bit, over the last year or so, or maybe more, however long it's been. And a couple of times you've dropped in, well, I work with this fighter, so I can't really talk about that fight. When you say that, are you working from an analytical standpoint with a fighter's camp about how they can improve their game or how they should approach their opponent? When you're working with fighters, what are you doing with them?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's providing an analytical report. So clients may just ask for a scouting report. So tell us everything you've got on fighter XYZ, and I can lay all the stats out. How is their striking accuracy? What do they tend to do? What is their pace? What is their defense like? So I'm able to benchmark people against what is average for their division, and also considering sometimes the strength of their opponents to factor that in. So it can help people identify the strengths and weaknesses of an opponent that they haven't faced. But also on a fight-by-fight basis, they can go back and look at tape a little more intricately because they can say, well, in this fight, they had a lot of trouble with this particular aspect of the game, so let's go back and watch that fight and see what it was that was causing that problem for them.
Yeah.
So usually it's scouting reports, but it's also to help the fighter themselves know what their areas for improvement are.
And it must really help, because these guys are experts at breaking down the tape. And we got a guy here, Robin Black, that just blows my mind. He slows the fight down and the little nuances that he picks up, but it must really help a camp when they're watching a fight and they've already watched it and broken it down, yet when they see your numbers, it's amazing. It's almost like, where's Waldo when you already saw the picture once before, right? It's a lot easier for them to break it down when they know what they're looking for, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. This is one additional tool that helps out all the other ways of analyzing fighters and fights. So that's hopefully, a good trainer is going to look for every advantage they can get and look for that knowledge. And so this just allows them to test their own ideas a little bit better.
So, Reed, we've got an intriguing main event here with Machida and Mousasi. Machida has always been a very deliberate fighter, and maybe sometimes to his own detriment. He's anything but reckless, but at the same point in time, I thought he could have beaten Phil Davis if he was more aggressive, and he just would have kept on attacking, because when he does attack, he's freaking lethal. And, like Brock Lesnar, I remember when Machida was dominating, and it was like, no one's ever going to beat this guy. He's just too difficult. He's too awkward. When you're looking at your numbers, I guess it's hard to quantify awkwardness of a fighter, but is Machida really an awkward fighter, or is that an urban myth?
Well, you can measure defense and just how elusive a guy is and how hard to hit he is, and that's a good proxy, I think, for awkwardness. When you're facing a guy who's just hard to catch, his style makes people hesitant when they face him, and that is measurable. And I went back and looked on a round-by-round basis. He's never been hit by more than 3 power head strikes while standing in any round that he's ever fought in.
Wow.
That's throughout his UFC career and even before that when he was facing guys like BJ Penn. So he's just really, really hard to hit for a variety of reasons. And so that translates into a very clear metric. Now, in this matchup, it's just interesting that his opponent also happens to be very good in that category. Mousasi doesn't get hit very often as well. But when it comes to striking, there's no doubt. Machida is just punch for punch one of the most dangerous strikers in UFC history. He's extremely accurate, but also very powerful. But you hit the real problem on the head, and that is his pace. He works at a slow, deliberate pace, and sometimes that works against him on a round-to-round basis. It's
a great point, though, that you raise as far as it takes the other fighter out of his game because they don't know how to approach Machida. That's an incredible stat. Does anybody come even close to that tonight? And especially fighting in the light heavyweight division here. It's amazing to me. He's never been hit more than 3 times in the head in one round. Does anybody come close to that?
That was a bit of research I just pulled up this morning, so I'd have to go back and see if anybody else is that elusive. But normally, Machida is a guy who stays standing for the majority of his fight. And so usually you're going to get hit a few times if that's where you spend most of your time. It's just that his head striking defense is so good, and it's actually even better with power strikes than it is for jabs. He eats a little bit more on the jabs, but still that's not an area for concern. But if you do factor in the fact that he's been knocked out, or knocked down at least twice. He was knocked down against Jones before he got submitted, and he also got knocked out against Hua. Punch for punch, there is some signs that maybe he can't quite take a blow quite as badly or quite as well as someone else who's much younger. And keep in mind, he is the oldest guy in this matchup, and probably on the main card, if I'm not mistaken, but he's about 36 years old. He can be dropped, and so his elusiveness is part of his strength, and it's a good thing because if he gets clipped by a guy like Mousasi, there's no guarantee that Machida might get KO'd here.
Reed Kuhn, Fightnomics.com with us. The book is Fightnomics, and it's great stuff. You really should pick it up if you're a diehard MMA fan. All right, so we got Francis Carmel here. I look at Carmel, and he doesn't really do anything especially well. It's not like he's got a devastating stand-up game. He seems to be pretty good at the takedowns. So he's successful with the takedowns, but then he really doesn't do much when he takes you down. But he's very, very physically imposing. he kind of loses a little bit out of advantage against a guy like Jacare, who's a pretty big guy in his own right, fought in a catchweight fight, at 194. So Jacare's a pretty big guy in his own right as well. Jacare's a big favorite in this fight, and justifiably so. But when you look at the metrics of this fight, do you see any way of Carmel upsetting Jacare?
Well, his size has been a big advantage. He's faced some scrappers before, and just Francis Carmon is a huge dude, and he controls well on the ground. And so that's definitely what he's hoping to do, is to neutralize the weapons of his opponents by using range, and then when they're up close, clinch and ground control. But you're right, when he goes onto the ground, he usually stalls out around half guard. So most of his time spent on the ground is either hovering or guard or in half guard. He doesn't advance on that very often. He has made it, but that's not where he spends a lot of time. So you got to wonder if he wants to really play that game against a guy like Jacare, who's extremely dangerous with submissions. And you got to think he would almost be happy to work off of his back if that means opening up a lot of submissions. So the usual plan for Carmon to just smother guys might not work here, because Jacare is just so dangerous at close range. And the question is, might he decide to simply keep it standing and say, hey, I've got a 4-inch reach advantage, maybe I should just use my range against this guy and make it more of a striking match. But once again, Souza has showed that he has really improved his striking game, and he's very dangerous and can hit hard as well. So, Souza, if he's undersized, his lower pace might come back to bite him, and maybe this will be closer if Carmon is able to smother him early on. But there's no doubt that Souza is the more dangerous fighter here.
Yeah, I think Jacare might have caught lightning in a bottle right now, and I know that there's Weidman and Vitor Belfort, but I think Jacare and Chris Weidman would be a very intriguing fight, Reed.
Oh, absolutely. That would be a great one to see.
Yeah, with their jiu-jitsu backgrounds, with Weidman, being so good at jiu-jitsu, and he hasn't really had to show it ever. And Jacare, as you mentioned, with the new dynamic, just vicious with the stand-up, which just throws everything out of mixes the cards up here. You don't really know what you're going to get from Jacare here. So, Reed, once again, congratulations on the book. I wish we had more time to break it down with you here on the program, but we encourage people to follow Reed on Twitter, Fightnomics, and great stuff on the book, Reed. Congratulations. Enjoy the card. We look forward to getting you back on the program.
Hey, thanks as always. I'll talk to you soon.
There's Reed Kuhn with us. Man, that segment just absolutely flew by. MMA Meltdown continues. All right, it's time for our videos of the week. We've got 3 quality videos this week for you, and we'll start off in the Olympic theme. Let's hit the pools. A little kayak water polo, in which, I don't know, another one of these new invented sports. It'll probably be in the Olympics in a couple of years' time, but here's a knockout for the ages from the pool. There's so much to see there. Buddy takes a kayak to the face. Like, that's got to be worse than getting kicked in the head by Lyoto Machida. Like, I don't know. If you give me a choice, so this is the deal. Either you get hit face first with a freaking kayak. Not to mention, one guy got hit with the kayak in the face, and the other guy got taken out with the paddle. Like, how did they think that was going to work in that pool? Like, with those big-ass kayaks and those paddles. Yeah. It's some quality stuff. All right. And pretty much every city has the medieval theaters. You go, and I've never been to one of these things, although I did enjoy the scene in Cable Guy when Matthew Broderick got his ass kicked by Jim Carrey. I've never been to one of these medieval places before, but I tell you what, if they got this going on, then I've been missing out for a long-ass time. And this is what's going on in Poland at their medieval theaters. Now, in Montreal, on the mountain in Montreal, they have this stuff every Sunday, but not like that. Not with like real metal clubs and stuff like that, you know. What's up with Eastern Europe? These guys are just kicking some serious ass in barbaric fashion. All right, we've got a video here. This is real old school. This is a jiu-jitsu demonstration from 1919. That's right. We're going back a ways here, and this is some quality stuff. This guy kicks some serious ass. Unhand me, sir. I love the suits, like, you know, even in the old school, these guys are dressed nice. Now we know where Steven Seagal got his shtick from. Is it just me, or is the guy... I don't think this is 1919. I think this is Vladimir Putin. That looks like Putin. I think Vladimir Putin's immortal. He hasn't aged ever. This is him in 1919, and he's still kicking ass today. That's a good one. Grab his suit, single leg takedown. If you ever find yourself with any problems with a dude wearing a suit and a tie, you know, this is the video to watch. A lot of times, like, we see old videos like this, and, you know, they're kind of funny and, you know, but strange in a way. But this guy's damn good. This guy is damn good at what he's doing here, man. It's like Hoist freaking Gracie or something. You know, this guy is one of the best defensive fighters I've ever seen. One of the best defensive fighters I've ever seen. I wonder if Lyoto Machida has seen that video. Now we're going to crunch this fight with Lyoto Machida with the best in the business in Joey Odessa. The number is plummeting for one reason or another. A lot of Mousasi money coming in, and Mousasi's an enigma, isn't he? You know, we're talking about a guy that that beat Hector Lombard, that beat Jacare. He's beaten Souza before. But we're also talking about a guy that barely. You know, did he even beat Keith Jardine? I guess it was a draw. He probably won the fight. Kind of got screwed. But, you know, recently, Keith Jardine. Which Mousasi are we going to get? We're going to break that down and more. MMA Meltdown continues. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. I am Gabriel Morency. It's time to send it to Costa Rica. And the longest running and best combat sport odds maker in the business, bar none, Mr. Joey Odessa steps up. And Joey, it's always a pleasure, my man. How you doing?
Hey, what's happening tonight, G?
We're doing all right, Joey. Last week we had a quiet week, and you got a little bit of rest, but there's no rest for the wicked. We go back-to-back, UFC on the 15th and the 22nd. They're going to Brazil this Saturday, and we've got a pretty interesting main event, Joey, with Lyoto Machida and Gegard Mousasi. Two fighters that are very, very skilled, but I think it's safe to say that they're also two fighters that have been underachievers in their career. They've both reached, pretty high heights in their career, but they've also been pretty big enigmas, haven't they? I just said, coming out of the last break, you look at a guy like Mousasi, as you brought up, you know, he wins the tournament at a 40-1 shot as an underdog, 45-1. He beats Hector Lombard. He beats Jacare. But this is also a guy that lost to King Mo and fought to a draw. I thought he won the fight, but fought to a draw against Keith Jardine. Mousasi looked horrible against that tomato can they gave him in his UFC debut. It's hard to know what Mousasi you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, we look back. Well, it's easy to play results, and that's what our entire business is based upon, results. But you look back at the equality of opposition, and even when guys come over and we talk about these imaginary tournaments and imaginary charts, they bring it's working like boxing. I mean, guys are, it's not where everybody, where the best are absolutely fighting the best all the time, and there's more guys that can come in. And don't get me wrong, there's more talented guys that come in, and the talent gap might not be as big, but you have a definitive winner. And if you look back at Musasi's fights, I mean, the kid over there, and I guess they fought over in Sweden, that Latif kid that came out to Rocky, he gave an honest fight. I mean, he was limited. Mike Kyle, okay, gives an honest fight for as long as, he lasts, but I got to respect him. I mean, he gets beat up at AKA every day. Same Peru and, the Japanese fighter, for crying out loud, though. I mean, he did draw Keith Jardine in some 3 years ago, seems like yesterday. Going back with Musasi, I just, I think Machida beats him. I think he beats him fairly convincingly unless he gets stopped. I don't know how he's going to lose to him. Musasi's not going to out-wrestle him like Phil Davis.
And and the Phil Davis fight, of course, was a controversial, decision to say the least, Joey. And Machida,
well, I'll take it. I know
you were going to take it. I know you were on it. You said Phil Davis was going to be able to take him down, and you were right. I still think Machida.
He paid for Atlantis. I got a photo of it. My kid loves him.
I still think Machida won that fight. I think Machida won the fight, but Machida took the pedal off the metal, and he's been a little bit more aggressive right now. And that's when I say Machida's an underachiever, because I think he could be better if he was more aggressive and he wasn't so complacent for one reason or another. Now, the early money's been coming in on Mousasi, Joey, but, we've seen in the past, and every sport is different. People always talk about wise guys, and it's the most overused and biggest fallacy out there. We see it on Twitter. Sharps, wise guys, so squares like this and that. Now, on Sunday night with an NFL football game, Joey, when the odds come out on Sunday night for the following week, that's sharp money that's moving the numbers. Because Joe Sixpack isn't, he's not putting down $2,000 on 7 days away. So there's a time to know when it's real money and when it's fake money. Yet it seems like the real money, Joey. I don't know any sharp, and I know a lot of guys that bet big money, $5,000 a unit or so on MMA fights, and they don't do it a week before the fight, Joey. They do it a minute before the fight. And, they might bite the bullet and maybe not even get a better number, but I don't know too many wise guys that are betting fights. You got to be insane to bet an MMA or a boxing match weeks in advance, Joey. So we see these line movements, but I don't know what to make of these movements, because you say it all the time. The damn limits are $25.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing because you send guys out early, and a lot of it doesn't show up on the tickers and the screens. I mean, the truth be told, the guys taking these, some of these bigger wagers, are just not, or guys that are getting, the good early, that are getting a number from a guy that's, putting down 3-5, or more on it, 3 or 5,000 more on a fight. And, and they'll just, they'll put it out there, they'll spread it out under smaller accounts, under the radar. They're betting all sports, and nobody pays attention. I mean, there's a method to the madness. If it was so easy, everybody'd be getting rich off it. But going back to Machida as an underachiever, I mean, you look at his losses. He lost to Davis, and we did say Davis would take him down. I mean, Davis, worked for the takedown, and King Mo said that Phil would take.
He lost to Rampage. He lost to Rampage.
Yeah, again, like I said, he just, Phil, take a marble out of the jar. But Machida, as far as his aggressiveness, I mean, 20-4, defense wins championships. And, Machida's counter-striking and everything, I like Machida the way he is. I worry that if he gets too aggressive with Mousasi, and I'm not going to coach Joe it, of course, because that's just not for we save that for every other late preview show. We just pick, we don't even pick, we just tell you who's going to win these fights with an educated opinion. I like
Machida in this fight as well, and I know you're not a big fan of the parlay, but I don't like going against the hometown guy, especially Sean Pierson said earlier. He's not fans of people that don't support the local fighters. Francis Carmal fights out of Montreal right now, Joey. He's undefeated. He's never lost in the UFC. And he's a huge underdog against Jacare. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I believe that the UFC would like nothing better than to see all the TriStar fighters lose right now. Medeski just lost. They're not happy with George St. Pierre running his mouth all the time. I'm sure if the UFC, behind closed doors, they'll be happy if Maia beats Rory McDonald. And now they got Carmel. But Carmel got a lot of free passes. Carmel's won a lot of controversial decisions. The judges have been very kind to him over the years. And for the most part, Carmel has fought either in Toronto or Montreal. So now he doesn't get any favors. They send him to Brazil. I'm surprised the number is as high as it is. I knew that Jacare would be favored, Joey, but I'm seeing like minus 480s out there.
I'm seeing minus 615.
615s, wow, 6-1, really, huh?
Yeah, I tell you, this Carmont, he dodged more Subway tokens and fights than you can imagine. I mean, if you were going to relate it to something, I mean, this guy's like a professional. But it's kind of odd because let's hope Carmont isn't the Phil Davis of this UFC card. I mean, it's totally meaningless. But when you think about it, it's like, geez, who really, besides a handful of people, thought that Phil Davis was going to go to Brazil and upset him?
Well, what's Carmel going to do?
I just don't see it.
He's going to have to take him down, yet it's a little bit different. You take Jacare down, he can break your arm, Joey. Multiple world jiu-jitsu champion, this guy.
I mean, he can do anything. I mean, just pick your passion, pick your poison. He, whatever he wants to do on the ground. Jacare, he's going to, I think Carmel's it's going to take an excellent game plan for him to beat him. And I don't see him winning the decision in Brazil unless Jacare really, unless somebody's got pictures of Jacare with a German Shepherd, I just don't see it.
I don't see it either. As I was saying, I know you're not a big fan of the parlay, but, we'll probably get Machida at about 2-1, minus 200. Hopefully it comes down a little bit more if more Mousasi.
Oh, it will.
You think so, huh?
It will. Yeah, there were rumors out there that Mousasi was injured, and it was funny because the Machida money was pouring in, and then then they debunked the rumor. But look, you read, you don't believe everything you read and hear, but at the same time, if it was true, it would make sense that they would want, after the Faber post-fight injury report came out, which was ridiculous. It just should have stayed quiet, I think. Whatever. He lost the fight. He, got stopped. He got his butt kicked. All respect to Faber. He stepped up on short notice. But let's not make excuses in hindsight. And if Mousasi is injured going in, okay, we'll cover it up. But you know what? If we covered it up, let's not in the end, after the fight, say, "Oh, well,
Mousasi,
he was." Let's just keep it real. But Mousasi said he was.
Mousasi said he was injured last time when he looked like crap against the Swedish guy.
He's been injured since 2009.
I know, exactly. People got to deal with it. All right, so we only got a couple minutes here, Joey. Eric Silva, kind of the poster boy for the UFC Brazil, at least until John Fitch, ripped him apart and broke his will. Eric's
on, kind of a, an odd run. I mean, yeah, he seemed to have a tough time of it. But go ahead. So
Eric Silva, he's not unbeatable. Seems like a winnable fight for him. He gets, the pancreas champion here with Takanori, with Sato coming over, Joey. First UFC fight.
It's crazy. You look at this fight, Sato, 17-8 coming over from Japan, imported over there. But, he's younger than Silva, and he's 28. I mean, Silva's no spring chicken. I mean, you have to look at that. And he's made some really... I think, he does a lot of things really, really great, and he does a lot of things really wrong. And I'm not going to coach Joe at all, but you're not going to see me running out there, throwing big money on a guy that's got, I wouldn't do it. I mean, he's one of the biggest favorites on the card, and he's tough as nails, but he did lose to Fitch. He lost to, he got DQ'd, which showed a lack of, I guess, just a lack of consciousness in the ring. No pun intended, against, I forget who he punched in the back of the head. It was Prater, I think. But, surprisingly, the referee stepped up there. Yeah, it's not a bout I'm looking to bet or parlay. I mean, look, he looks like money, but not here, not for me.
All right, Joey, so we got to wrap it up, but quickly, you got something about the South African making his debut?
Yeah, I'm excited because a while ago, I started taping, and you know I keep an extensive archive for even stuff I don't watch because I know someday I will. The EFC, African Fighting Championships, and the UFC just signed a heavyweight, and you know he's a Caucasian heavyweight that is about 250 pounds, 6'2", built diesel. You look at him, and he would look quote unquote explosive, you know, as they would say for a South African light heavyweight, and he's 8-1. Avenge his only loss, and it brings some good, you know, the heavyweight division needs some depth. Where Doom's overtraining in the Netherlands, like I guess like Alistair did, right? Oh, Alistair went to Thailand. Where Doom's going over to the Netherlands. I don't know if it's going to help him. He's got to get the, you know, he's got to do what he's got to do. But anyway, Gabe, we'll have a good one, and let's tear this card up and.
We will, Joey.
The next time.
We will. And don't forget, Joey breaks down the prelim fights on MMA Meltdown Radio. Joey Odessa. Follow him on Twitter. MMA Meltdown continues. All right, we're done. Shout out to everyone here at the Fight Network. Job well done, as always. Thanks to all of our guests. Read Kuhn from Fightnomics.com. It's a great book. Check it out. Pick it up online. Thanks to Sean Pierson for joining us. A real nice guy, class act. We wish him the best of luck. We look forward to seeing him return to the octagon. You can follow Joey Odessa on Twitter at MMA Odds at twitter.com. And if you want my final UFC selections, log on to SportsRageTV.com this Saturday, and I'll post picks for every fight. Other than that, you're on your own. Later.